If international coaching, executive mobility, culture, and basically global markets, global brands has ever crossed your mind or woke you up at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, this is the panel for you. Looking forward to an incredible conversation with top executive coaches and thought leaders. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Welcome everyone to a super exciting show. This is Jackie O meets Elvis and, Sasquatch in the same frame. I don't know which one's going to be which. So we are speaking about international coaching. And what a better way to do it than to bring an international panel. All of us, brothers and sisters, mentor experts, powerful women today, but highly credited and proficient executive coaches at what we do. So from Spain, we have Yvonne Dam bringing our European flavor. We have Valerie Hayes joining us from Texas, and Yusuf Scali, of course, from Ottawa, but really the world. He's a citizen of the world. And I am Carolina Billings, your host from Toronto, Canada. So speaking, two thoughts come to mind: international coaching in executive mobility, right? In all of us, what I love about our panel is that all of us have experienced the ability to take our knowledge and our goods and our practice and just go to a different, headquarter, basically. And so tell me what that is all about. Like, I know my experience, but I want to hear from you guys. So Yvonne, if you could, you're the most recent move, so you can get us started.
Yeah, so for me, when I started my practice, I knew one thing. I wanted to be able to coach. I'm a coach from anywhere. So I have an online practice that basically allows me to work from any location. So which is I really love. And since this is my fourth international move in 12 years, it's also very handy. And I recently, last July, and we're April now, I moved to Spain in Europe, and I came from the Netherlands. Prior to that, I was in London, and prior to that, I was in South Africa. So, and my business goes with me. My clients don't even notice it. Of course, they notice because I talk about, sunshine. But other than that, it's really very, for the business itself, it's non-disruptive, but a lot of things change, of course.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So 4 moves in 12 years. That is, is exciting actually, right? So I can't wait to hear more about it. So Valerie, tell us about you. Your practice has, it's international, especially the type of clients that you facilitate for. So tell us about your experience.
Well, if you combine my corporate America experience and my experience as a coach, I've actually worked with people in 6 of the 7 continents. And I was oftentimes working with teams of people that included people from different countries and different continents and different time zones, different cultural practices, different cultural identities. And so I'm very, very familiar with what it takes to make an international move, what it takes to work with international clients and market yourself internationally, as well as how you need to be sensitive to the differences that different groups of people might have and not make assumptions just based on where you're at.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. And Yusuf, you've had an interesting executive career as well. You're an empowerment coach and an executive coach and consultant. And you ended up Well, I'm going to let you tell your story and see if we're going to tell the same side of the story. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you know my story by heart by now, Carolina. Uh, well, similar to Yvonne and Valerie, I've been moving around the globe for 20 years, actually, where I lived in different countries during my corporate career first. So I changed countries every 3 to 4 years first. So I've been in all the continents. And also, I changed functions during the corporate, which was a double change at the same time, changing from finance to human resources. And I mentioned that because you may think that finance is the same everywhere and human resources is the same everywhere, but then you realize that there are some subtle differences from one part of the globe to the other on the perception of every function. And then I moved to Canada in 2021. And unlike Yvonne, I don't talk about sunshine anymore. I talk more about snow, and because I moved from Spain, where I was based for 6 years before I moved to Canada. And it's really important to come back to what Valerie mentioned about the cultural sensitivity and staying away from the assumptions and the stereotypes. And I think all of us as coaches here, we have a powerful tool in our hand, which is we learn how to ask questions. And, and that's exactly the doorway to avoid those assumptions, I believe.
Very true. Very true. And, is loss aside, I mean, because when you're speaking about human resources and in just business, culture aside, they're different laws. So therefore the culture, I don't know if the laws follow the culture or the culture follows the law. But coming from my moves, professionally have all been in Canada, but academically, have been in Latin America and the United States. And I is the one thing that I find the most interesting, especially in the area of diversity and inclusion, right? We're all aware of the concept, but when you go from, being the majority in a country and then you make a move and now you're the minority, right? And it's like that, like one, flight away, right? And it's having that agility, that adaptability that I find coaches, it's almost like a sixth sense. Is that do you find like the integration part is not as difficult? What would you accredit that to?
I would accredit it to experience. Once you've done it once, it's easier to do it the second time and the third and the fourth. Every time you work with a person of a different culture or background, you become more aware as a person. We all grew up. When we're growing up, we think we live the normal life and everybody lives the life we do, when you're a kid, right? And then you go off to college and you're like, oh my God, this is completely different. And then you get into the workforce and it's even more different. And so I think it's really great to expose yourself to those opportunities when you can, even if you're not traveling. For example, when I lived in Minnesota, they had a great Celtic festival every year at this college nearby that we would go to, and it was celebrating the Celtic cultures. And then there was a large Hmong community, and they had a cultural day where they had arts that they would sell, a little booth, and the food was amazing. And so were the arts. And I think every time you can take the opportunity to expose yourself to a different culture or a different group of people, that it's really both educational and kind of fun.
Yeah. Now, you've had an interesting thing occur, Yusuf, where you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you made the move to Ottawa, which we're ever grateful you did. And you ended up doing business with a lot of the people from the places that you used to be. So tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first, my coaching practice started really kicking off during the pandemic, and that was not even as a coaching at that time, because it was mainly organizing virtual group sessions to men who lost their job during the COVID and didn't feel or didn't dare even to talk about within their family, even to their partners. And then, to my surprise, it started getting bigger and bigger. And the participants started telling me, I have a friend in Dubai, can he join? The other one, I have a friend in China, can he join? And it became international, and it was a group of friends. And that made me realize that, okay, if I'm going to move to Canada, it was already the plan. So actually, as Yvonne said, I can do this everywhere, from anywhere and at any time. So actually, this is how it started. But most importantly is that when I started my practice in a more structured way, I would say, in Ottawa and with PWT, then people from Spain specifically started reaching out. Oh, we saw your activity on LinkedIn, so we would like to have we would like to explore a potential coaching with you. And then also people from France and from Middle East mainly. But I have to say that a big credit to the exposure I got with PWT from one side, and with LinkedIn, I have to say, I have to admit that. I would like just to touch on something back to the question, your first question, Carolina, because something about a misconception about the coaching is that, in my opinion, some would think that we coaches, we come with a ready-made solution that is copy paste for everyone, and which is not the case, because in every coaching session it's a different dynamic, it's a different energy, and we learn to adapt to that. So I think that also help us to also adapt to new environment, new situation, because this is what we do in every session basically.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And I know Yvonne and Valerie do not know this, but I'll tell it as fast as I can. How we met Yusuf, and he was our very first ally mentor expert. Prior to that, we were 100% female mentor experts, and we had a LinkedIn event that over 1,000 people signed up. And I did not know and we're going to talk about that not being ready when something takes off, right? So I had run it as a regular meeting, so it only accepts 100 people, right? Instead of a webinar that would have been unlimited. But anyways, you live and learn. So Yusuf managed to be one of the 100 that got in, right? There were people hanging around waiting for someone to drop out. And he kind of came in and looked around and said, like, why are there only women here? Why is it that in North America, all of the HR people are only women? It's like, am I welcome to stay? Right. And we're like, of course, like we welcome gender intelligence, right? But he did it in a way that was genuinely curious, definitely non-threatening. And this has nothing to do with the fact that he's a gentleman, because you know what, we all of us can walk into meetings in Latin America and coming in as an assertive female, and we're not going to be very liked, right? Because that's just not the culture. So to be able to break the ice and sometimes state the obvious in a non-threatening way is a strategy to succeed in international markets. Now, Yvonne, when you in Yusuf's case, his language, his ability to speak, I don't know, 500 languages helps him keep coaching in many other countries, right? But the three of us are English based, correct? So to be able to bring that as a unifier, would you say that the fact that we're all speaking a foreign language to some degree becomes the unifier?
Sometimes it does. I think it's quite often that it's an easy connection, so to say, because you recognize that someone other than yourself go through the hustle to speak in a different language. But I also find that sometimes my English, or as my daughter, who is native English speaking, always says, your funny Dutch accent, is a great icebreaker with native speaking English people. And it can it can build bridges. Especially what I find is if you don't take yourself too seriously. I joke when someone doesn't understand me. I had it the other day. I said enthusiastic. I gave a client a compliment and I said, but you're so enthusiastic. And they went like, what? So I thought they were joking, but they couldn't hear my accent. But as soon as you joke, it's like immediately there's this bond. And I think that goes a long way with establishing relationships, with appreciating different cultures, different languages, is find that sense of humor together with, yes, and being curious about the other. That's really something that has helped me a lot. And I'm going to put something out there, but we're also all biased. Even if you don't want to be biased, you are biased just by the way you've been brought up, by the country you lived in, everything. But being aware of your bias is gold. I think that makes a lot of difference in building bridges as well, because sometimes you just don't understand how it is. It might be because you haven't lived there or you don't really understand the culture. But just being aware that you are aware that you're different, that's already a very big in. And then together with, being human, being curious, finding the humor in things, I think that really helps. And I'm often surprised how similar we all are,
Yes.
with all the differences we have. Yeah.
So in articulating your vulnerability, that's the key, because you can have like many internal insights, but it's in sharing them. And I think that's what you're saying, Yvonne, that is a great way to unify and to break down barriers.
Yes.
That is really good. Thank you. Thank you. And Valerie, you mentioned about marketing internationally. And this goes for all of us. I'm just, Valerie was the one that mentioned it, and you piqued my interest. Because we go and I know with LinkedIn, like our primary Powerful Women Today, our primary networking platform is LinkedIn, and most of our audience is in North America, although Yvonne is making sure that changes pronto. And I'm always humbled that I'll get messages from people all over the world, Singapore, Afghanistan, India, commenting on posts that I never issue them. And it's not, talk about bias, right? It's not that I was excluding anyone, but I wasn't including them. So how do you even begin to consider international marketing, Valerie?
Well, I think Yvonne has already touched on the primary element is we have more in common than we have dissimilar. Generally speaking, everyone wants to experience a good quality of life for themselves and their family. They want to provide a good education, good access to medical care, ultimately get the kids set up in a good career, a nice, stable home, that whole kind of thing. So I think if you recognize what are you have to get down to the common base elements. I recently was listening to a marketing guru's podcast, and he said there are three basic things that people want in life. They want to improve their relationships, they want to improve their health, or they want to improve their wealth. And all categories of product or services come under those three things. Mm-hmm. So if you as a business owner can figure out which, what are your three things you are, and then in your marketing copy and emails and when you show up on social media, emphasize those three things, it's most likely that people in different cultures than your own are going to be attracted to those three things. And I think it's also important for us in North America to recognize that, there are coaches everywhere in North America, coaches for every kind of specialty niche that you could possibly even imagine.
Mhm.
But that's not the case for other countries. And they are very eager and seek out resources, which is why, Carolina, as you suggest, posting on LinkedIn is such a great opportunity for people to connect with like-minded professionals, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, as well as for people seeking advice that they're not able to get in their home country. And that's I mean, I know there's a lot of detractors about social media, but that's the beauty of social media.
You know what? I love, like, honestly, I find it a privilege that I get to spend my days working with incredible people like all of, our mentor experts. And it's all done on social media. It's all done in such a rich and robust and, in generous environment, and what I like, what you just said, that we often make assumptions that innocently, right? Like, we just figure this is how it is everywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
But that is not the case. And I know, Yvonne, when you and I first met, instantly we were just like within seconds, like it was almost like, I thought about it after. It's like, I hope she didn't think I was like just too, I don't know, naive or flaky, because instantly it was like, okay, we have to take Powerful Women Today to South Africa. We have to take Powerful Women, because I know these areas are of great need, right? So the fact to know someone who's been there, instead of us trying to go in and pretend we know, right? So whenever you're considering, global, like, funny because we say international, and when you think about it, even doing cross-border business here between the US and Canada, it's got a bit of international flavor to it, right? Although we don't often feel it, but that's another conversation. Being, if there are any coaches that are interested in doing business overseas, so this is an extended market to the knowledge that the three of you bring, right? So it's not just the clients, the direct clients, your niche that you facilitate, but all the coaches that are thinking, you know what? I want to bring empowerment to the, female empowerment to the Middle East, which I've been invited actually by people from I know, right? I was at a seminar at Ivy here in Toronto, in Canada, learning how to do case studies and how to teach through case studies, right? And it was that, and it's an international, school. It's like part of an EMBA, and there were all these gentlemen from, like, I think it was Dubai or the Arab Emirates, that would hear what I do for a living and what my company's about, and how we go about it, and they would like, you need to come to our kind of, I'm going, I don't know. I don't know, right? But that's a bias. It could be that, the times have changed, and that the local initiative and culture does want a little bit of that to come in, right? So we shouldn't be too quick to think we know based on past history or what we read in the news. So tell me, what is something, Yvonne, as you keep coming closer to the West, in a couple of years, you're going to be here in North America. What are some of the biggest, surprises that aside from the commonality, what were some things that you were not expecting?
Oh, geez, there's so many surprises. Well, I just have to. So I'll give you some funny examples from, for example, when I worked in South Africa. People have a very different definition of personal space. So imagine yourself at an ATM and then someone touching your back, and you go like, well, I don't really like this, and that's normal. But also a very common trend there is to hug people, including clients, including colleagues. Now, I am Dutch, and our culture is more like, I'm giving you a hand and I'm keeping like a meter away. That's kind of our culture. So you can imagine coming there and then having these colleagues hugging you and you go like, okay, so I still recall one day I was still in the corporate world, and one day I went back to the Netherlands and I came back to South Africa, and my colleague wanted to give me a hug, and I was more like, oh, I went back to my culture, and he's like, what happened? Are you going Dutch on me? and it's those kind of things. And what I also really like, for example, here in Spain, we all know the expression mañana mañana, right? So it all happens tomorrow. Well, first of all, it's very true, which can be a bit frustrated, when you're more used to like everything's going to happen on time and when you've agreed upon it. But it brings such a different vibe of living. It's really, we spoke about the sun. You have this big table, people sit down, they share food, they talk about their day, they eat late, they relax. And that immediately brings you in a different mindset. And it's more like, just be. And I love those changes, but it's also funny because I have a client who is American and she's doing business with Spain. And then she gets upset because she doesn't have a reply within 24 hours. Mm. And I have to tell her, but listen, it is Spain. Yes. Have you heard of the expression mañana mañana? Yes. So
I still want it today. That is, we eat cold food in all the Latin. I'm assuming, again, an assumption, because dinners last 2 hours. Because you're talking and you actually put the cutlery down, right? And you're just like, all the food is cold, the coffee's cold, drinks are warm, everything is the opposite to what it should be, because that is how you decompress. And it's so interesting. And also after a 2-hour meal, I don't know about Spain, but in Latin America, there's no dessert. It's like, okay, I've been sitting here for 2 hours. At this point, I'm hungry again. Can we have some dessert? And they just like look at you like, yeah, we don't carry that. It's like, okay, fine. So right. Valerie, you mentioned, the go-getter, right? And you and I have done a lot of work and are going to be doing a lot of work with the high achievers, with the addiction to more, right? More, and give me more. How do you see that occurring in different areas of the world? Are women as driven, or what is is there a gap?
I think the women are as driven. So if you were to take the percentage of population of women in North America that are driven and compare it to, other countries around the world, the percentage would be the same that are naturally driven, naturally motivated to achieve and improve and always go up a level. The challenge is that different countries or regions of the world have different opportunities available to them. They have different challenges. For example, as we all know, unfortunately, in Iraq and Afghanistan now, women can't work. They can't work in the workplace. In some countries, they're still trying to implement, girls can't go to school. So I think what's important, if you're one of those women that want to be a high performer, try to look around at the resources available to you in your immediate community. That might be education programs. It might be the local library. It might be the internet. I know not everyone has access to a computer every day, but you can look for information to help you expand your skill set and help support your vision. But you can also look for networking groups that will support you and encourage you, because you may not have that particular resource available in your area. So I think it just comes down to that old adage that if a woman wants to do it, she will.
When there's a will, there's a way, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. And even the relationship between, women and men, I have to tell you, like, So Powerful Women Today is about empowerment. I would like to think that we're really not a feminist group. And in a lot of it, as an extension of its founder, is that I don't like to be told what to do by anybody, including the feminist groups, right? It's like, let me figure out what works for me. That being said, I was listening to a presentation at 5:00, and there was this gentleman who seems to have a passion for female founders, to get more female founders out there. And I'm thinking, I would really like to ask him why. You know what I mean? It's like, why does a gentleman need to focus on a niche? Like, it's different when you're assisting both men and women, right? Like, you just have a neutral kind of practice, a gender neutral practice. And we do to some degree, right? But whenever you see one person focus, like narrowing, it would be like Yvonne, for you to say, I specialize in in gentlemen that want to level up their career. Somebody would say, why? Especially internationally, right? So what? And I know, and I caught myself, right? And I was trying to not let it bother me, but I was like, no, this bothers me. Like, I need more explanation than this. But anyways, those were my issues, clearly not his. So when we go internationally, the gender, right? Like, yes, we're going through some kind of renaissance in North America with gender fluidity and it's all a construct. But when we go internationally, right, how do we begin to onboard ourselves to the difference? Do male executives respond to female coaching? And do female, executives respond to male executives? Like, how do you define, talk about marketing material, right?
Right.
How do you define your messaging to areas that you really don't understand yet?
Yeah.
It's kind of
I would,
yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
go
Yusef. No, go ahead.
Gentlemen first.
yeah, I would say it comes back to the basic needs. There are some common needs in everywhere, and also on your niche. So in my case, for example, I work with people in career transitions, especially the ones who are stuck and want to change, either change completely the environment and move abroad, or change within their environment but change to a different job. And I know by my lived experience, when I decided to change from finance to HR, and that's a perfect example because at that time finance was male dominant function and HR was a female dominant function. So my colleagues and friends were joking, were saying, oh, you are going to the woman's side, you are going to the female side. So, but at the end, it's what drove me, it's what I wanted, what I really, how I visioned my future. And that's what everyone wants at the end. It's really what their own definition of success, not by the gender bias or not by the stereotypes of the society. And here where as coaches, we come into the context of really helping the individual to define first what are their success, and then work with them how to put it in place in the societal environment that they are operating in. So I work with people from Saudi Arabia years before the change in Saudi Arabia, and some female, I couldn't go beyond what was possible because the environment, it was restrictive. So I'm happy that now it's changing, but there are some limitations that we as coaches, we can't go beyond that. The other part I say, and those especially for the ones who are, because international coaching for me, it's an asset and liability at the same time, in a sense that sometimes, especially for the ones who are having a deep imposter syndrome. So for that, where also it is very important to understand when a person feels that they are not good enough, Is it that they're not good enough in their environment? And if you take them out of their environment just by ideas, and this is where I like to call it the importer syndrome. And I think all of us here, we have that. We bring that importer syndrome in terms of ideas because we help people in that case to see from a different angle that that might not be accessible to them within their cultural context, within their culture. So for me, moving from that imposter to us bringing an importer, I importing new ideas, importing new vision, new context, it really helped. And then in terms of gender, it's really also, and I work a lot with some female refugees in Canada that just arrived to Canada. And it's really important to show, in my opinion, what is possible, what other women are doing, and what's accessible to other women that might not be even thinkable in their environment. And just opening that, I wouldn't call it a door, just a window first, because we open the window and let them open the door. So that's the beauty, I think, of it.
Wow. Valerie, you were going to
Yeah, I agree with you that I don't love people marketing to one gender or another. Because that's very stereotypical that all people in this gender are this way and all people in that gender are that way. I prefer to tailor my marketing to be to attract clients who are a good fit for me, my business philosophy, my coaching philosophy, as well as my communication style and how I work with clients, right? Because my coaching is, I'm a trusted advisor. I'm someone who's they're really being vulnerable with and opening up to, and I'm giving them a lot of important guidance. So it needs to be a really good fit. It's not like I'm an auditor coming in and auditing their books, right? And so with my coaching, I try to give them a sense of who I am as a person, what some of my opinions are. You can see those on my LinkedIn videos. And what kind of work I do. For example, I don't work with manufacturing companies. I try to make that very, very clear. And I find that my marketing message attracts a fairly equal balance of men and women as well as other genders. So for me, I think it's communicating who I am, what I have to offer, how I coach, and then they're able to decide if that connects with them and how they operate or not.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, very interesting. So, Yvonne, international coaching. I'm thinking international qualifications, right? How do you know? Like you're looking for, maybe you're looking to move, to Central Europe, and you would like, a coach on the ground to help you with the transition. How do you know their qualifications, or vice versa?
Well, you have the International Coaching Federation, clearly. Powerful Women Today also educates women to get that certification. So that's a great worldwide recommendation. And sorry, I just have to laugh because my dog is waking up. So sorry if you hear annoying sounds. It's the dog. But that's a great recommendation. And I know this is different for everyone. But personally, for me, what matters most is that a coach gets me and that I get a coachee. And that there's a true click and that I can see they can help me solve my problem. That's the main thing for me. That's personal. What qualifications you have is less of interest to me, because someone can have like 12 qualifications, but if you don't get me, we're not going to be really working together. So it's really depending on what you find important. And a lot of the qualifications are these days international. And if you're really local, then you most likely will also know the local qualifications. And what I will say that I find sometimes very important is that the qualifications often give also rules of ethic that gives you kind of a protection that there is like this overarching organization that keeps it all ethical. And I can imagine that that can give you kind of a security if that's something you're looking for. So
Agreed.
in short, do your homework and look for what matters to you.
And yeah, to build on something Valerie just said, you know, Valerie, she who's not here, Valerie uses a lot of video. So do we all, right? And actually, that is the future, the present of marketing is video. And so there's a lot that gets communicated through video that cannot be communicated through any other medium. And one thing for anybody considering an international coach, you know, because a different perspective, right? Like if you're a visionary that thinks differently, well, that may be you're only thinking differently within the context that you're used to, right? So reaching out, you can end up with a robust, you know, practice and career with clients overseas. But also check the digital footprint of the coach,
Mhm.
right? Check
Right.
the signs, see the size of their network, see whom they're affiliated with, right? And you're able to see, because in especially platforms like LinkedIn, people know if you put that you've attended a university, you know, a specific, like this year I graduated from this program, chances are someone's going to bump into you that, you know what I mean, that will set the record straight, or that somebody can go and verify and check whether you worked at this place or not, you know, and it happens. So due diligence, you know, check, make sure there's affinity. Is more than just one thing. Just like Yvonne just said, it's not all about qualifications, right? But belonging to an organization like the International Coaching Federation
Right.
that does have a presence, you know, worldwide, and it's voluntary. That's the part that I like about it, is that, you know, coaching is an unregulated profession at the current time, right? So that all the people that voluntarily put themselves through the expense, and it's not easy. I mean, they certainly don't make it easy to be part of, right? It's not difficult, but it does, I don't know, in my opinion, seems to be unnecessarily complex. Half the time, I have greater difficulty figuring out, you know, the ICF website than I do other places that ought to be more complex. But anyways, it is, you know, it is worth considering. So if you're a coach that wants to expand their business, that wants to expand their reach, contact, you know, either Yvonne or Valerie or Yusuf. Find out what it takes to have those international clients. How do you about making sure that you get paid? How do you make sure about pricing, right? Because just because it's, you know, a no-brainer, $29.99 in, you know, in Canada or in the US, not that that's, you know what I'm trying to say, right? That $29.99 could be a fortune somewhere else in the world, right?
Right.
And so getting that really international coordinates, I think, is a great place to start before you even start investing or spending time, or, you know, do a sound check, right? How easy is, you know, there's markets that are, you know, whether it's a myth or reality. I think it's reality based on everything that I've seen. Like Australia is an incredible market. You know, is people there are eager. They're go getters. So if you have any kind of coaching practice, any kind of, you know, anything's going to be fabulous. But it's also a time zone away. You know what I mean? Like many. Like what's the feasibility of you being able to support those clients, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, right now, huge thanks to Yvonne, because for, you know, it's dawn for you at this point, isn't it?
It's a quarter to 2
Oh
a.m.
my goodness. So thank you. And, you know, my university is in Central Europe, so I get it. You know what I mean? Those meetings at 1, 2 o'clock a.m. But that is what it means to want to have an international practice.
Yeah.
And these are the pros and cons that we all need to evaluate.
I have
So
a client in Singapore, so I had my first session today at 5 a.m.
yeah, Singapore kind of was, no, Philippines kind of freaks me out a little bit sometimes, because we'll be having a meeting at 9 o'clock at night, and it's 9 a.m. They're 9 a.m. right? And it's just one of those things that you got to time it right. If you time it
Yes.
right, it's brilliant, because you just basically said something and then it gets done. Like they're already starting their day, so by the time you wake up, it's done. Right?
Yes.
If you are proactive and you get it to work for you, but there's all these caveats. So we're at the top of our segment. The information that you guys have shared is, well, firsthand, right? This is not theory, this is actual practice. So what would the takeaway be? What is your wish for, somebody to really explore international markets and clients? So Yvonne, if you would like to get us started, and then Valerie and Yusuf, please.
What I wish for anybody who wants to explore it is basically just do it. Honestly, it's much easier than you think, because we already spoke about it, but if you're on social media, you're already global unknowingly. Be open to it, figure out the logistics on the go, or if you don't feel comfortable, talk to one of us, and just have fun. If you make a mistake, own up to it, and tell them you made a mistake. But it's so much fun to do business internationally, and to connect with all these people, and to understand that we're all the same, even though we're all different. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
That's the beauty of diversity and inclusion, right? Valerie?
I think if someone's just starting out with international, interactions with clients or customers, I think try to start out in a time zone that's close to you, in a culture that is fairly similar to yours, and then and with a native language that is fairly similar to yours, right? And then just keep expanding the circle, and you'll get more and more comfortable as that circle expands. So at some point, you'll be like everyone on this panel, where they're talking to people at midnight or 2 a.m. in the morning. But don't start there, because it can be overwhelming and discouraging. Start small, and then just keep expanding that circle.
Yusuf?
Yeah, exactly. I would say, I would just add up on what Valerie said. You can even start wherever you are, within your context, with people from different backgrounds, with an international client within your country, within your city, within even your neighborhood. We don't talk to our neighbors enough, so just go start talking to your neighbors first. And I would say also it's very important to really rise up above all the stereotypes and question the biases, starting by our own biases. I mean, that's key, and that's what I talk about, cultural humility. I would invite everyone to go take our book, The 30 Days to Transformation by PWT, where there is, in my chapter, I talk about cultural humility and some anecdotes where the difference between cultural humility and cultural competence. Because one thing is that I believe none of us can be 100% competent in any culture or any other culture. So better to take it from cultural humility. The other thing, know that there is a crowd somewhere needing your expertise and needing your experience, especially that people in coaching, where we try really to help people to move ahead, to rise up, to level up. So it's most of the time they already tried before coming to us, and it didn't work. And here I come back to the quote that it's attributed to Einstein: insanity is doing the same thing over again and again and expecting different results. But I add to it, it's also insanity, it's doing the same thing as everyone else and expecting different results.
Oh, that is brilliant. Well done. Yes.
For me, it's like when we approach international or just any expansion, it's from that angle, it can really help.
Yeah. We had a brilliant conversation earlier, and I'll repost the clip, the video, the track with Yvonne about expanding your business. This has been fabulous. Thank you. So many walkaways. In one of them, thank you for that perspective that we have so many coaches in North America for whatever you want, people with green hair, people with purple hair, people, but that's not the case everywhere in the world. So there's a huge opportunity to both grow your business and to serve, right? To serve, to bring hope to someone around the globe. So please do reach out to Yvonne, Valerie, and Yusuf. Follow them on social media. I'm always amazed at what I don't know every time I start watching their videos, and then it's like, okay, now I know. So thank you everybody for staying with us and for connecting. And we look forward to more information and for our upcoming summit, My Power, My Story, My Legacy, which is another way to find the right coach for you, to understand the story, to understand their humanity, because it's likely that they're going to understand you best. So thank you, everyone, and stay international and with an open mind, open hearts, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.